The boy executed a simple sword-drawing slash, yet the professors observing were left in shock. Such strength was unheard of for a mere student, though it appeared to be a single strike. In reality, it consisted of 3 cuts, with the final one deliberately slowed down to ensure the professors could see it clearly. This act, however, enraged Lonen, maintaining a calm expression, simply stated, "Teacher, you frightened me." Neros, taken aback, demanded, "Who taught you that sword technique?" Confused, Lonen responded, "What are you talking about? No one taught me." Neros narrowed her gaze and rephrased her question. "Did you see my movements just now?" Lonen nodded. "Yes, I did." She studied him for a moment before saying, "You're remarkable. You drew your sword and executed 3 cuts in an incredibly brief moment." As she calmed herself, she acknowledged, "Yes, just as you demonstrated." But then, her tone abruptly shifted. "You arrogant brat. You deliberately slowed the final cut so we could see it clearly, didn't you?" Lonen was momentarily stunned. The truth was, he had slowed the 3rd cut not out of arrogance, but to reduce its power and avoid injuring himself. However, faced with Neros's anger, his explanation seemed feeble. The principal remained silent, awkwardly averting his gaze, while the other 2 professors stood dumbfounded. One of them muttered, "As professors, shouldn't we have noticed something?" A moment later, Neros sheathed her sword and returned to her seat. "From now on, I will teach you, personally," she declared. Even as she sat down, her emotions remained unsettled. The principal, watching her reaction carefully, understood what she meant. Neros had already accepted Lonen as her disciple. Turning to the boy, the principal announced, "You've passed. But we still have one question for you. Why did you choose to come to Philip's Royal Academy?" At this, Lonen lowered his head, memories resurfacing in his mind. He recalled the moment he had poured all his strength into defeating what he believed was the most powerful 4-winged giant. Thinking the battle was over, he had been blindsided by an even greater threat, an 8-winged giant descending from the sky. 4 wings had not been the creature's limit. In that moment, Lonen had steeled himself for a final battle, prepared to fight to the death. However, a surviving woman had disagreed with his decision. Instead of joining the fight, she had unexpectedly kissed him. 2.5 years prior, 3 giants had suddenly invaded the empire, devastating more than half its territory in a short time. The destruction only ceased when Lan's army intervened, barely managing to hold back the giants, at a devastating cost. The army was virtually annihilated, leaving only a severely wounded Lonen among the survivors. As he gazed over the battlefield, sadness flickered in his eyes. Then, a voice rang out. "It's been a long time since I've seen such a strong human." Turning his head, Lonen realized the voice belonged to the supposedly dead giant. Anger flared within him as he stepped on its face. "Half the empire has become a graveyard because of you," he spat. "Why aren't you dead yet? Do you want to know how your 2 friends died? One was roasted by a red dragon. The other was permanently sealed by a magician." He had hoped his words would provoke the giant, but instead, it replied indifferently. "The children of the stars share senses. I already know how they died, but we will return soon, and there are no humans as strong as you left on Earth." Without hesitation, Lonen swung his sword, severing the giant's head. "Just die already. Enough of your nonsense." Afterward, he wandered the battlefield, stopping when he came across the lifeless body of an old friend. Kneeling beside it, he murmured bitterly, "Why didn't you run when I told you to? Why sacrifice yourself for so-called discipline?" Amidst his grief, a faint cry for help reached his ears. Despite his injuries, he forced himself to move toward the sound. He soon found the source. It was the great commander, Anderson. She was still alive. Relief washed over him, but as he examined her closely, concern took hold. She had lost an arm, yet seemed entirely unconcerned about her own injuries. Instead, she focused on one thing. The giant, she asked urgently, "Is it dead?" "Yes," Lonen confirmed. "I killed it myself." Hearing this, Anderson let out a breath of relief, tears falling involuntarily. In the past, fallen soldiers had been left discarded, their bodies abandoned on the battlefield. But now that the battle was over, it was time to honor them properly. As Lonen finished speaking, a violent cough racked his body. He glanced down, at his hand streaked with blood. His injuries were worse than he had thought. Looking up at Anderson, he spoke with grim finality. "I could die at any moment." Anderson's expression darkened, but she refused to accept his resignation. "If you could live," she asked, her voice firm, "what would you want to do?" For a moment, a flicker of light appeared in Lonen's weary eyes. "I'd probably go study at an academy," he admitted. "That was my sister's wish for me, but there's no hope for that now." Anderson's anger flared. "Don't talk like that," she shouted. "The rescue team will be here soon." Before she could finish, the sky suddenly cleared. A single ray of dawnlight broke through the clouds, casting an eerie glow over the battlefield. But instead of bringing relief, it filled them both with dread. Lonen and Anderson stared in horror as an 8-winged giant appeared in the sky, its massive form looming over them. And it wasn't alone. Countless followers swarmed behind it like a storm. Despair flickered in Anderson's eyes. She had fought relentlessly, saved this world 3 times before, but this time there was truly no way out. "This is it," she whispered, her voice laced with exhaustion. But Lonen refused to accept defeat. He tightened his grip on his sword and stepped beside her with unwavering determination. "Great Commander, comrade, what are you doing just standing there?" he demanded. "Use your psychic power. Throw me up there. My sword can't reach them from here, but I can teach these bastards a lesson." Anderson was momentarily stunned. Even in such a dire situation, he still wanted to fight. What a determined fool. Then, without warning, she kissed him and spat something into his mouth. Anderson looked at Lonen with a solemn expression. "This is a pearl that can reverse time," she said. "It can be used 4 times. I've already used it 3. A faint smile crossed her lips. "That's how I climbed from being a simple tailor to becoming the great commander." She took a deep breath before continuing. "I'll give the last use to you, and when you see me again, please convince me to become a tailor instead." Before Lonen could respond, a brilliant flash of light enveloped him. When his vision cleared, he found himself standing in his childhood village 10 years in the past. His surroundings were painfully familiar. Disbelief washed over him. "Am I dreaming?" he muttered. To test his reality, he strode to a nearby tree and slammed his head against it. The sharp pain that followed confirmed the truth. This was real. Slowly, Lonen began to accept his situation. But a new problem weighed heavily on him. The great commander's expectations were nothing short of grand. She had placed the fate of humanity in his hands, expecting him, alone, to fight the giants. How was that even possible? After a brief moment of contemplation, an idea formed in his mind. Grabbing a tree branch, he sprinted toward the village entrance. However, on the way, a commotion caught his attention. A group of bullies had gathered. Their attention focused on a boy hanging upside down. But what stood out most was how they had restrained him not with ropes, but with magic. Lonen's eyes narrowed in surprise. Telekinetic magic, here, in a remote village. The gang's yellow-haired leader sneered as he loomed over the boy. "Give me the money," he demanded. The boy struggled, his voice trembling. "I already gave everything to my mother for medicine. I have nothing left." The leader's expression twisted in fury. Without hesitation, he turned to a girl in the group. "Raise him higher," he ordered. The girl hesitated, her eyes betraying her reluctance. but fear kept her from disobeying. As the screen fades to black, Lonen's journey is only just beginning. Will he gather the strength and allies he needs to change fate? The battle against the giants is far from over. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, comment, and share this video. And don't forget to subscribe to OniTube for more epic tales. Stay tuned for the next chapter, and I'll see you in the next video.